Hare Krishna, everybody. Good morning. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 1, Chapter 15, titled The Pandavas Retire Timely, text 13 through 15. So I'll just read the translations for all three texts, and then today we'll focus on text 14. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Translation for text 13. When I stayed for some days as a guest in the heavenly planets, all the heavenly demigods, including King Indradev, took shelter of my arms, which were marked with the Gandiva bow, to kill the demon named Nivata Kavacha. O King, descendant of Ajamita, at the present moment I am bereft of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by whose influence I was so powerful. This is Arjuna speaking, and text 14, translation. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. And only by his grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with jewels that were sources of all brilliance. Text 15. It was he only who withdrew the duration of life from everyone and who, in the battlefield, withdrew the speculative power and strength of enthusiasm from the military phalanx made by the Kauravas, headed by Bhishma, Karna, Drona, Shalya, etc. Their arrangement was expert and more than adequate, but he, Lord Sri Krishna, while going forward, did all this. So we'll go back to text 14 and we'll do the Sanskrit and translation and purport. Yad bandava kurubalabdim anantaparam eko ratena tatareham atirya sattvam pratyahritam bahudhanam cha maya paresham tejaspadam manimayam chahritam shirobhya. Translation. The military strength of the Kauravas was like an ocean in which there dwelled many invincible existences, and thus it was insurmountable. But because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. And only by his grace was I able to regain the cows and also collect by force many helmets of the kings, which were bedecked with jewels that were sources of all brilliance. Purport. On the Kaurava side, there were many stalwart commanders like Bhishma, Drona, Kripa, and Karna, and their military strength was as insurmountable as the great ocean. And yet it was due to Lord Krishna's grace that Arjuna alone, sitting on the chariot, could manage to vanquish them one after another without difficulty. There were many changes of commanders on the other side, but on the Pandava side, Arjuna alone on the chariot, driven by Lord Krishna, could manage the whole responsibility of the great war. Similarly, when the Pandavas were living at the palace of Virata incognito, the Kauravas picked a quarrel with King Virat and decided to take away his large number of cows. While they were taking away the cows, Arjuna fought with them incognito and was able to regain the cows, along with some booty taken by force, the jewels set on the turban of the royal order. Arjuna remembered that all this was possible by the grace of the Lord. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatarine. I was so happy to hear some of the intentions set for this morning because I feel like we might delve into them a little bit this morning. Yat Bandhava, by whose friendship only. Bandhu, friend. friendship is really at the center of this verse here today. Arjuna is speaking about the fact that he was able to become victorious over at this Kurukshetra war, and he's saying through his friendship with Krishna. That was his strength, the friendship. And it's so beautiful because we know about this relationship, this friendly relationship between Krishna and Arjuna. It's very well known. And later in the Bhagavad Gita, we see in the chapter about the universal form, how Arjuna is saying that, you have this great form here that's just terrifying and inconceivable, and your opulence is so great. And he says, please forgive me what I have done, because I've dishonored you many times by addressing you as, oh Krishna, oh Yadava, oh my friend. We've relaxed and lay on the same bed together. We've sat and eaten together. So please excuse me for these offenses because I've acted so familiarly with you. And Prabhupada says in that purport to the verse that I was just paraphrasing, that although Arjuna had seen the opulence of the universal form, he could not forget his friendly relationship with Krishna. So even though he saw this amazing opulence and just awe-inspiring form of Krishna, still what was dear to him was Krishna as his friend, and he couldn't forget that. And the same thing here we're seeing in this verse. It's after the war was over. It's now Krishna's gone back to his abode, and Arjuna's already had the whole Bhagavad Gita spoken to him. He's seen the universal form. He knows the opulence of Krishna. But again, that friendship is what is very dear to his heart. And he attributes it to his victory. In previous verses, it's been different things, but this one is specifically, he says, but because of his friendship, I, seated on the chariot, was able to cross over it. So just that friendship was so powerful. By Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we have the opportunity to have Krishna as our friend as well. Srila Prabhupada says in a lecture to Bhagavad Gita 2:11, that Krishna, he's the best friend of everyone. Suhridam sarvabhutanam. He's not only the friend of human society, he's the friend of animal society. God is actually the perfect friend of all living entities. So if Krishna's our friend, then that means we're having a reciprocal, loving, two-way relationship with him. And every relationship and friendship has its own flavor. You speak each other's language, you know what the other person likes, the other person knows how you communicate. And if you don't quite understand them or you're not on the same page, then it can cause a little bit of perhaps distance, or you might have to work on the relationship to be able to come again and understand each other. So Krishna can speak our language of friendship. He can speak whatever language we're coming from, wherever we're coming from. He doesn't just speak Sanskrit. He can speak bird, he can speak snake, and maybe even cockroach for the Floridians over here. But he can speak our language of friendship as well. And so today what I wanted to do was take a look at Dr. Gary Chapman's 5 languages, love languages. He's a famous marriage counselor, and he authored this book about the ways in which we give and receive love. So my analysis today is not to bring Krishna down to like, oh, he gives love in these 5 ways, and my intention is to help us see that if we can understand these love languages, which is made more on the material platform, but if we can understand them, we can see that Krishna does reciprocate in these 5 love languages, then we can come closer to him because he's there ready, waiting to be our friend. We are the one that have to open our heart to that friendship. And so maybe through this analysis and smaranam, remembrance of Krishna Katha here, we can open our hearts a little bit more to seeing that Krishna is a person who can and does reciprocate in these ways. So these, just back to Dr. Chapman's 5 love languages, they're not just for like married couples or something. It's for all relationships. It's meant for, friendships, parent and child, everything. So it's just the way in which we feel loved and the way in which we tend to give love that means something to us. So yeah, let's go through the 5 love languages and remember pastimes about Krishna and how he reciprocates in these ways. So the first love language is acts of service. So for these people, acts of service means that actions speak louder than words for them. So if somebody does something for that person whose love language is acts of service, they might, run an errand or do something practical around the house. That is the responsibility typically of the other person, but they do it out of their love and maybe spontaneously, and the other person feels like, wow, this person really loves me and cares for me, that they're willing to go out of their way to do something for me. And on the flip side, if you break commitments with these kind of people, or you're lazy, or you make more work for them, they're really going to feel like you don't feel that their emotions matter. So this example was just very strongly Arjuna in my mind, because Krishna takes the position of his chariot driver willingly. And I remember hearing in one class how it's like the chariot driver is sometimes like goaded by the rider with his foot even, like it's just the working aspect. The head job is the rider, and the chariot driver is just really just doing the work and has to take all the commands, yet Krishna willingly and lovingly takes this position as Arjuna's chariot driver. Another one that came to mind was the gambling match happened. They went into exile, the Pandavas. They come back. They ask for land. They're refused. They say 5 villagers, still refused. So then Krishna himself goes as the messenger of peace to the court and says, come on, like, let's work something out, because if not, it's war. Please, let's work something out. So they could have sent anybody, but Krishna personally took the service of becoming a messenger again. It's kind of like a chore that just has to be done. He went and did. He just took that chore. He said, I'm going to do this for my dear friends, the Pandavas. And he went himself. So that's acts of service. Krishna does speak that language. Number 2 is receiving gifts. So for these people, what makes them feel most loved is to receive a gift of some sort. But it's not just anything. It's the thought behind it. It's the intention. It's the endeavor that one has to go through to get this gift that makes the difference for the receiver. So yeah, on the negative aspect, if you miss a birthday or an anniversary, or you just give a thoughtless gift, this person whose language is receiving gifts, they are not going to feel loved at all. So again, I'm trying to focus here on the Sakya Ras of Krishna reciprocating with his friends in these ways. So if we're thinking on the transcendental platform with Krishna, he gives his best friends, the cowherd boys, a gift that he goes through a lot of trouble and risk to get: stealing butter and yogurt. And he knows that he is risking getting caught by Mother Yashoda, perhaps beat with a stick. He knows that this could be very dangerous, but he goes and he steals butter, and he calls his friends to come and share with them this butter. So it's a very meaningful gift. And for his cows, he gives them shoes. In fact, he insisted, he refused to wear shoes himself until Nanda Maharaj got shoes for all the other cows. So 900,000 of them got shoes before Krishna would wear them. So a very thoughtful gift, where it meant a lot. It would mean a lot to the cows that Krishna is, restraining something for himself just for us till we get the gift. So we have acts of service and receiving gifts. Number 3 is quality time. And this can mean quality conversations with somebody or doing activities together. And this kind of undivided attention and time spent with someone makes them feel very loved. So if you're distracted or you're scrolling on your phone or you're not really listening to this person, that's a real downer for them, because all they want is that really undivided attention, or while doing an activity, but that you're very present. So as far as Krishna and his friendships, we see that after the Kurukshetra war, Krishna was going to leave Hastinapur finally to go back to Dwarka. And he had made up his mind that's what he was going to do. There was no swaying. And so he got on his chariot and everyone was saying bye. And then at that time, Uttara comes running. Save me, Krishna, save the child within my womb. So Krishna protects Maharaj Parikshit in the womb. And then Kunti comes and she offers her prayers. And then Krishna's like, okay, now it's time. So he asks Yudhishthira, please give me permission to go. And Yudhishthira doesn't. He's basically like, no, please stay. I can't do it. Because at this stage, Yudhishthira Maharaj he's fully depressed, really, at this stage. The fact that this war has taken place and hundreds of thousands of men have died because of him. There's just cities full of widows and fatherless children, and he can't handle the fact that this has happened. He's really just completely distraught. And he asked Krishna to please stay. He just needed his friend to be there. And Krishna does, just immediately, just like that. Before he wasn't going to be swayed, but then immediately he was like, yeah, my friend needs me, I'll stay. And he didn't just stay 5 minutes. I mean, he stayed a while longer, because after that, they go to see Bhishma Dev on the battlefield, and all those instructions are given by him and prayers, and Bhishma Dev leaves in the presence of Krishna. And then Krishna waits even to see then Yudhishthira Maharaj put on the throne properly till everything was set and Yudhishthira was peaceful and ready to rule. And then he went back to Dwarka. So he was fully there for his friends. And he wasn't like looking at his watch like, my queens are really missing me. I've been away for a long time. Like, I need to go, He's like, no, he's fully present there and ready to be there for his friend. So acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and number 4, words of affirmation. So for people whose language is words of affirmation, when someone encourages them or compliments them, it just means the world to them that you would say these words that uplifts their spirit and makes them feel special, but not just empty compliments, but like reasons. Why do I appreciate you? Why are you special to me? Really meaning it. And on the flip side, if you insult someone, yeah, definitely not going to be forgotten anytime soon. So we can take a look at Krishna's relationship with Uddhava. In the Krishna book, the chapter about Krishna's daily activities, it describes that one day a messenger came to the court of Krishna and put forward a message from these 20,000 or so kings who had been imprisoned by Jarasandha. And he just said, these kings are pleading for your mercy. And so Krishna and his ministers began discussing how they needed to, get rid of Jarasandha. And at that very moment, Narada Muni also shows up and he says that King Yudhishthira is about to do the Rajasuya sacrifice. And he would, you need to go for that. But Krishna's ministers weren't so on board with that, because they were like, wait a minute, we were just discussing how to get rid of Jarasandha, and now you're about to leave for this, and you can't do that. And so I'll read this to you. It's very sweet. Krishna turns to his friend Uddhava. And remember, this is about words of affirmation. So Krishna smilingly said to Uddhava, "My dear Uddhava, you are always my well-wishing confidential friend. I therefore wish to see everything through you because I believe that your counsel is always right. I believe that you understand the whole situation perfectly. Therefore, I am asking your opinion. What should I do? I have faith in you, and therefore I shall do whatever you advise." So as someone personally, myself, who words of affirmation is pretty important, I'm like, wow, if somebody said that to me, I'd feel really like uplifted and completely loved and ready to serve in any way, you know? Um, so here Uddhava, he knows Krishna and who he is and his all-knowing self. But he's so inclined to serve Krishna. So he advises him that, you can do both things, really, because they're both connected. If Yudhishthira wants to be the emperor of the world, he needs to defeat and conquer everybody in all directions. And Jarasandha is a formidable enemy, so he has to be taken out. So by all means, go to Hastinapur for the Rajasuya sacrifice, but also get rid of Jarasandha. And then he even goes on to describe how to get rid of Jarasandha. And in this way, Krishna takes his advice and they move forward. So acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, and physical touch. So to this person who physical touch is a love language, it's about, being near a loved one, maybe a pat on the head, a hug, a pat on the shoulder, close in proximity. These things show love. And so initially, again, like I was saying, I'm trying to focus on the friendship relationship. I thought of the cowherd boys, slapping each other on the back, and Balaram rests his arm on Krishna's shoulder, and they're, rough tumble play. The cowherd boys they're on top of each other. They're boys, they're having fun. But then I couldn't resist sharing this other pastime, which doesn't quite fit maybe the Sakya Ras, but I just felt that it would fit our view as far as how to approach Krishna in these 5 love languages. So with physical touch, how would we do that, So then I wanted to share with you this pastime about the queens of Dwarka. Krishna's returning to Dwarka, and everybody hears about it, and they come out flooding from their homes and palaces, and the queens of Dwarka also want to come and receive their husband. But because of the culture, they can't just run up and jump up and give him a hug, that's just not the way that it was done. And so I'll read the translation to this is Bhagavatam 1:11-32. The insuperable ecstasy was so strong that the queens who were shy first embraced the Lord in the innermost recesses of their hearts. Then they embraced him visually, and then they sent their sons to embrace him, which is equal to personal embracing. But, O chief amongst the Brigus, though they tried to restrain their feelings, they inadvertently shed tears. So Prabhupada says in the purport how sending the son to give a hug to the father is the same as the mother, because the son comes from the mother's body. But he also says it's not exactly the same, but it's the same from the point of view of the embrace is a satisfaction, from the affectionate point of view. So from the affectionate point of view, it's the same. So these are the 5 love languages, and Krishna proves here that he does speak all of them. And I'd like to ask all of you as part of our discussion today, we could probably do it all together, a round of like sharing pastimes that you remember about Krishna that fit in these 5 love languages. But they don't just have to be in the Sakya Ras. They can be in Shanta, Dasya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. Really, had we looked at it in that way, we would have been here a long time, because that's like 5 times 5, 25 pastimes we could have looked at as ways of Krishna reciprocating in these love languages. So I know I'm a little over time. I want to give you all a minute or two to think about some pastimes that you feel fit these 5 love languages, and how we can see that Krishna really can reciprocate with us. Because I don't know about all of you, but like I've gone over with some of my friends, okay, what's your love language and this and that. And so if some of you've done that and you know what your love language is, then you can, okay, we can imagine ourselves, yes, Krishna can reciprocate with us in these ways. And we can also reciprocate with him. And also you can all be thinking about what ways would you like to reciprocate with Krishna in, because we can discuss that as well. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed this meditation, and we can all do some more smaranam by thinking about pastimes that involve these 5 love languages. Thank you. Hare Krishna.